2 in the morning, and I'm staring at the ceiling like it holds the secrets of the universe. Maybe it does. Maybe the secret is that my wife Claire thinks I'm an idiot. The wine glass in the sink gave it away. 2 glasses, actually. One with Claire's lipstick, that expensive stuff that costs more than I make in a day doing construction work. The other glass was clean, but not clean enough. I could smell the cologne residue. Expensive cologne. The kind that screams, I drive a BMW and wear Italian shoes. I'm David Halley, 38 years old, and apparently the last person in Millbrook, Massachusetts to know his wife is cheating on him. Well, not anymore. Claire's purse sat on the kitchen counter like a loaded gun. I'd never gone through it before. Call it respect. Call it stupidity. Tonight felt different. Tonight felt like the end of something. The hotel keycard was tucked behind her credit cards. The Marriott downtown, room 412. But the real kicker was her phone, buzzing with a text from C. Madison. Last night was wild. Can't wait to have it all. The house will be perfect for us. Ex, Chris Madison. I knew that name. Real estate developer. Slick hair, slicker smile, the kind of guy who'd sell his mother's grave plot if the price was right. Claire had mentioned him before. Always business, always professional. Right. I set the phone down carefully, exactly where I found it. No point in letting her know I knew. Not yet. The stairs creaked as Claire came down at 7:30, already dressed in her power suit. Red like blood, like the lipstick on that wine glass. Morning, honey, she said, not looking at me. She never looked at me anymore. Morning. I sipped my coffee, watched her move around our kitchen like she owned it, which, legally speaking, she did. We'd bought this house together, but her name was on the deed. My credit wasn't good enough back then. Funny how things change. She grabbed her purse, checked her phone, smiled at whatever she saw there. Then she turned to me, and for the first time in months, she really looked at me. David, we need to talk. Here it comes, I thought. The speech, the it's not you, it's me routine. The we've grown apart nonsense. But Claire had never been one for gentle letdowns. She pulled a thick manila envelope from her briefcase and dropped it on the table between us. You have 24 hours. I opened it. Legal papers, eviction notice. A check for $5,000, like a severance package for being a husband. Chris owns this house now, she said, her voice flat and businesslike. The sale went through yesterday. You need to pack your things and leave. I stared at the papers. Official looking, scary looking. The kind of papers that make normal people panic. Chris Madison? I asked. You know Chris? I know of him. I folded the papers, slipped them back in the envelope. Interesting timing. Claire's cheeks flushed slightly. This isn't about Chris. This is about us. We're done, David. We have been for a long time. Outside, a Range Rover pulled into our driveway. Tina Russo, Claire's best friend and personal cheerleader. She honked twice, their signal for, hurry up, I have gossip. Tina's here, Claire said, grabbing her purse. I'm staying at her place until you're gone. She paused at the door, looked back at me sitting there with my coffee and my eviction notice. Don't make this harder than it has to be, David. Just go quietly, I smiled at her. Really smiled, for the first time in months. Sure, honey? Whatever you say. The door slammed behind her. Through the window, I watched her climb into Tina's Range Rover. They were laughing about something, probably me. Let them laugh. The fun was about to start. My workshop in the basement looked like a war room, which, I guess, it was. For 3 months, I'd been preparing for this day. Not because I knew Claire was cheating, I'd suspected, but I'm not psychic. I'd been preparing because I'm not stupid, and Claire had been acting like I was. The real deed to our house sat in my safe, along with a dozen other documents Claire had signed without reading. She hated paperwork, trusted me to handle the boring stuff. Lucky me. David Halley Construction, LLC, owned this house. Had for 6 months. Claire's signature was on the transfer papers. A little creative penmanship on my part, but her handwriting wasn't exactly complex. The mortgage was paid off using money from a job Chris Madison had hired me for, ironically enough. He'd paid me to renovate his downtown condo, never knowing I was the husband of the woman he was sleeping with. Small world, about to get smaller. I drove to Murphy's Gym, a concrete box on the wrong side of town where serious people did serious work. Big Mark was there, like always, pounding the heavy bag like it owed him money. Mark Kowalski, 6'4", 250, hands like canned hams. We'd grown up together, back when Millbrook still had factories and men like us had futures. Now he trained fighters and did security consulting for people who needed problems solved quietly. You look like hell, he said, not stopping his workout. Feel worse? Remember that favor you owe me? Mark stopped punching, wiped his face with a towel. The thing with your cousin's kid? That's the one. 2 years ago, Mark's nephew had gotten mixed up with some dealers from Boston. Bad crowd, worse drugs. I'd used my connections, construction guys know everybody, see everything, to get the kid out of trouble before it got serious. Mark had promised to return the favor someday. Today was someday. What do you need? Information first. Maybe muscle later. I told him about Claire, about Chris, about the fake eviction notice. Mark listened without interrupting, his face getting darker with each detail. So they think they played you. They think they played me. Mark grinned, and it wasn't a nice expression. What's the plan? Still working on it. But I need you to keep an eye on Chris Madison. He works out at that fancy place downtown, Platinum Fitness, drives a silver BMW, license plate MADISON1. Real subtle. I know the place. Overpriced juice bar and yoga classes. Find out his routine. Who he talks to. Who he owes money to. Guys like Chris always owe money to somebody. Mark nodded. Consider it done. What else? There's a bartender at O'Malley's named Jules. He's going to give you a folder. Don't ask what's in it. Just bring it to me. This Jules, he's reliable. He's motivated. Chris Madison cost him his sister's house in a bad deal 3 years ago. Jules has been waiting for payback ever since. That was the thing about small towns. Everybody remembered everything, every slight, every betrayal, every broken promise. Chris Madison had been breaking promises in Millbrook for years. He just didn't know how many people were keeping score. I spent the afternoon driving around town, seeing it with new eyes, the bank where Claire worked part-time as a loan officer, the real estate office where she'd gotten her license, the Marriott where she'd been meeting Chris. All of it looked different now, smaller, more manageable. My phone buzzed, text from Claire. Hope you're packing. Tina's making dinner for 3 tonight. I texted back. Tell Chris I said congratulations on the house. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. How did you... Never mind. Just be gone by tomorrow. Poor Claire. She thought she was so smart, so careful. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. Jules was waiting at O'Malley's when I arrived at 6. The bar was nearly empty. Too early for the after-work crowd, too late for the day drinkers. Perfect. You sure about this? Jules asked, sliding a manila folder across the bar. I'm sure. Because once you open that, there's no going back. I opened it. The first photo showed Chris Madison with a woman who wasn't Claire. Blonde, expensive-looking, wrapped around him like plastic wrap. The timestamp showed it was taken last week. The second photo showed the same woman handing Chris an envelope outside a downtown office building. The third photo was a bank statement. Chris's account, showing deposits that didn't match his declared income. But the real prize was at the bottom of the folder. A letter, handwritten on expensive stationery. My darling Chris, it began. I can't wait until this is all over and we can be together properly. The Madison woman thinks she's so clever, but she has no idea what's coming. Once you have her husband's house, we can move forward with our real plans. She served her purpose. It was signed Stacy Morrison, Chris's ex-wife, the woman he'd divorced 2 years ago after she caught him embezzling from their joint business account. I looked up at Jules. Where did you get this? Stacy brought it in last week. She's been following Chris, documenting everything. Turns out your wife isn't the only one he's been playing. The pieces clicked together in my head like a perfect blueprint. Chris wasn't just cheating on Claire. He was using her to get the house, planning to dump her once he had it. And Stacy was documenting everything, probably for a lawsuit, which meant Claire was about to get screwed twice. Once by Chris, once by Stacy. Normally, I might feel sorry for her. Tonight, I just smiled. Jules, you beautiful bastard. Tell Stacy I want to meet. The welcome home party was Claire's idea, of course. She'd always loved showing off, and what better way to celebrate her new life than by rubbing my face in it. The invitation came via text. Chris is throwing a housewarming party Saturday night. You're welcome to stop by and say goodbye to the place. Classy. I spent Saturday afternoon getting ready. Shower, shave, my best jeans and work boots. The boots were important. Steel-toed Timberlands, broken in from years of construction work. They made a statement. The house looked different when I arrived at 7. Expensive cars lined the street, BMWs, Mercedes, a couple of Audis, Claire's real estate friends, Chris's developer buddies, Tina and her social media crowd, the kind of people who used words like networking and synergy without irony. Music drifted from the backyard. Jazz, probably something Chris picked out to show how sophisticated he was. I could see people through the windows, wine glasses in hand, laughing at jokes that weren't funny. My house, my backyard, my life, being carved up and served to strangers. I walked through the front door without knocking. The living room was packed with people I didn't recognize, all dressed like they were auditioning for a country club membership. Claire stood near the fireplace, radiant in a black cocktail dress that cost more than my truck payment. Chris was beside her, one possessive hand on her lower back, the other holding a wine glass that probably cost more than most people's dinner. Tina spotted me first. Her face went through several expressions in rapid succession: surprise, confusion, then something that might have been fear. She pulled out her phone, started recording. Everything was content for Tina. "David!" Claire's voice cut through the conversation like a knife. "I wasn't sure you'd come." The room went quiet. 30 pairs of eyes turned toward me, the uninvited guest at his own wake. "Wouldn't miss it," I said, grabbing a beer from the kitchen counter. "It's not every day a man gets to attend his own funeral." Chris stepped forward, puffing up like a rooster. He was shorter than I'd expected, maybe 5'8", in expensive shoes. His handshake was firm but soft, the grip of a man who'd never held anything heavier than a briefcase. "You must be David. I've heard so much about you." "I bet you have." "I hope there are no hard feelings about the house." "Business is business, you know?" I nodded, sipped my beer. "Absolutely." "No hard feelings at all?" Chris relaxed slightly. "Mistake." I pulled the manila folder from my jacket pocket, set it on the coffee table. "Actually, Chris, since we're talking business, I brought you a housewarming gift." The folder landed with a soft thud that somehow seemed louder than the music. Claire's eyes narrowed. She knew that look on my face. "What's this?" Chris asked. "Open it." He did. His face went through the same progression as Tina's, but in reverse: confusion, surprise, then pure terror. The photos were all there. Chris with Stacy, the bank statements, the letter, everything Jules had given me, plus a few extras I'd gathered on my own. "Interesting reading," I said, especially the part about Claire serving her purpose. Claire snatched the folder, started flipping through it. Her face went white, then red, then white again. "You bastard," she whispered. "Which one of us are you talking to?" Chris tried to grab the folder, but I was faster. Construction work keeps you quick. "I think everyone should see this," I announced to the room. "Since we're all friends here." "David, don't..." Claire's voice was shaking now. "Don't what? Don't show everyone how smart you are? How you figured out the perfect way to steal a house." I held up one of the photos, Chris and Stacy in a passionate embrace outside the Marriott. "See, Claire thought she was playing me. And Chris here thought he was playing Claire. But Stacy? Now Stacy's been playing both of them." The room was dead silent now. Even the jazz had stopped. "The funny thing is," I continued, "none of you bothered to check who actually owns this house. I pulled out the real deed, the one with my name on it. David Halley Construction, LLC, sole owner of 47 Briar Lane. Surprise." Chris lunged for the papers. I stepped aside, let him stumble into the coffee table. Wine glasses crashed to the floor, red liquid spreading across the white carpet like blood. "That's impossible," he sputtered. "I bought this house. I have the papers." "You have fake papers. Very good fakes, I'll admit, but fake nonetheless." Claire was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. "How? How what? How did I know you were cheating? How did I know Chris was using you? How did I know Stacy was using Chris?" I shrugged. "I pay attention, Claire." Something you never gave me credit for. Tina was still recording, her phone shaking in her hands. This was going to be all over social media within the hour. Perfect. "Here's what's going to happen," I announced to the room. "You're all going to leave, now. This is my house, and you're trespassing." "You can't do this," Chris said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Watch me." I pulled out my phone, dialed 911. "Police?" "I'd like to report a trespassing situation at 47 Briar Lane. There are about 30 people in my house who refuse to leave." That did it. The crowd started moving toward the door like water down a drain. Nobody wanted to explain to the cops why they were at a party in a stolen house. Claire and Chris were the last to go. She stopped at the door, turned back to face me. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is. I'll fight you in court. I'll take everything you have." I smiled, the same smile I'd given her that morning in the kitchen. "Good luck with that. Oh, and Claire, you might want to call your boss at the real estate office. I sent him some very interesting photos about an hour ago." Her face went dead white. "You didn't?" "I did. Something about professional conduct and sleeping with clients. I'm sure he'll want to discuss it with you Monday morning." The door slammed behind them. Through the window, I watched 30 people pile into their expensive cars and drive away, leaving me alone in my house with the wreckage of their party. I opened another beer, surveyed the damage, broken glass, wine stains, food ground into the carpet. It would take hours to clean up, but for the first time in months, I was smiling. Monday morning brought consequences. Claire's boss, Richard Pike, was a thin, nervous man who'd built his real estate empire on the foundation of family values and Christian principles. His billboards around town featured his wife and 3 kids, all smiling like they'd just won the lottery. The photos I'd sent him showed Claire and Chris in positions that definitely weren't family-friendly. My phone rang at 8:15. "David? This is Dick Pike. We need to talk." "About what?" "About your wife. About Chris Madison. About the photos you sent me." "What about them?" Pike's voice was strained. "Claire's been terminated, effective immediately. And I want you to know that Pike Realty had no knowledge of any improper relationship between our employees and clients." "Of course not. This kind of behavior reflects poorly on our entire industry. I've reported both Claire and Chris to the state licensing board," which meant Claire's real estate license was about to be revoked. No license, no job, no income. The dominoes were falling nicely. "I appreciate your professionalism, Mr. Pike." "Yes, well, I trust this matter is resolved, as far as I'm concerned." But it wasn't resolved, not by a long shot. Chris Madison was a man accustomed to getting his way through intimidation and money. When those failed, he got creative. Tuesday night, I was working late in my shop when I heard the sound of breaking glass upstairs. I grabbed a crowbar and crept up the basement stairs. The kitchen window was shattered. A brick lay on the floor, wrapped in paper with a message scrawled in black marker. "Give me what's mine or things get worse." Subtle, I called Big Mark. "He made his move," I said. "What kind of move?" "The stupid kind. Broke my kitchen window, left a threatening note." Mark chuckled. "Amateur hour. Where do you think he'll try next?" "Probably the construction yard. He knows I keep equipment there, thinks he can hurt my business." "Want me to wait for him?" "We'll wait together." Kowalski Construction Supply sat on 3 acres of industrial wasteland near the old factory district. Chain link fence, razor wire, security lights that worked when they felt like it. I'd been renting space there for 5 years, storing tools and materials for my jobs. It was also the perfect place for someone like Chris to try something stupid. We didn't have to wait long. Wednesday night, around 11, a silver BMW crept down the access road with its headlights off. Chris parked outside the fence, sat there for 10 minutes working up his courage. Mark and I watched from inside the equipment shed. "He brought friends," Mark observed. 2 more figures climbed out of the BMW big guys, the kind you hire when you need someone intimidated but don't want to get your own hands dirty. "Professionals?" I asked. Mark studied them through binoculars. "Nah, gym rats, all muscle, no brains. They cut through the fence with bolt cutters, headed straight for my truck. One of them had a baseball bat, the other carried a can of spray paint." "Vandalism," I said. "How original." "You want to stop them now?" "Let them get started. I want this on camera." The security system I'd installed last month was top of the line, motion-activated, night vision capable. Everything was being recorded in high definition. Chris's hired muscle went to work on my truck with enthusiasm but no skill. Broken headlights, dented hood, obscenities spray-painted across the windshield. Chris stood watching, probably feeling very pleased with himself. That's when I hit the floodlights. The entire yard lit up like a football stadium. Chris and his boys froze like deer in headlights, literally. "Gentlemen," I called out, stepping into the light. "Thanks for coming. We've been expecting you." Mark emerged from the other side, carrying a tire iron like it was a conductor's baton. The 2 hired muscles looked at each other, looked at Mark, looked at their baseball bat. The math wasn't difficult. "This is private property," I announced. You're trespassing, vandalizing, and threatening, all felonies." "You can't prove anything," Chris called out, but his voice cracked like a teenager's. I held up my phone, showed him the recording app. "Actually, I can prove everything. Smile, Chris. You're going to be famous." One of the muscle guys dropped his bat and started walking toward the fence. Smart man. The other one looked at Chris like he was expecting orders. "Don't just stand there," Chris hissed. "Do something." "Like what?" the guy asked. "Like what you're being paid for." The muscle guy looked at Mark again. Mark smiled and tapped the tire iron against his palm. "I ain't being paid enough for this," the guy said, and followed his partner toward the fence. Which left Chris alone in my yard, surrounded by evidence of his crimes, facing 2 men who had every reason to dislike him. "Funny thing about intimidation, Chris," I said, walking closer. It only works when you're the scariest guy in the room. He backed toward the fence, but Mark was already there, blocking his exit. I know people, Chris said. Important people. You can't touch me. Touch you? I laughed. Chris, I don't need to touch you. You just handed me everything I need to destroy you. I held up the phone again. Breaking and entering, vandalism, criminal threatening, conspiracy. That's about 10 years in state prison, give or take. You're bluffing. Am I? I dialed 911, put it on speaker. 911, what's your emergency? I'd like to report a break-in at Kowalski Construction Supply. 3 men just vandalized my truck and threatened me. I have them on video. Chris's face went white in the floodlights. Officers are on the way, the dispatcher said. Thank you. I hung up, smiled at Chris. You've got about 5 minutes before the cops get here. I'd suggest you start running. He ran. Mark and I watched him stumble through the hole in the fence, a trip over his own feet, scramble toward his BMW like his life depended on it. Should we stop him? Mark asked. Why? I've got his license plate, his face on camera, and 2 witnesses who'll testify he hired them. Let him run. It just makes him look more guilty. The BMW's engine roared to life. Chris peeled out of the parking lot, leaving rubber and the smell of burning oil behind. Think he'll try again? Mark asked. Chris? Number. He's not the type to learn from his mistakes, but he's also not brave enough to escalate further. I was wrong about that, but I was right about everything else. The call came Thursday morning at 6 a.m. Stacy Morrison's voice was crisp, professional, and absolutely furious. Mr. Halley? We need to meet. Today. About what? About finishing what we started. We met at a diner outside town, the kind of place where truckers and shift workers grab coffee before dawn. Stacy Morrison looked exactly like her photos. Blonde, sharp-featured, expensive clothes that couldn't quite hide the predator underneath. Chris is planning something, she said without preamble. Something big and stupid. What kind of stupid? The kind that gets people hurt? She slid a manila folder across the table. More photos, more documents, more evidence of Chris's stupidity. He's been borrowing money from some very unpleasant people in Boston. Loan sharks, basically. He owes them $200,000. I whistled. That's a lot of money. Money he was planning to get by flipping your house. When that fell through, he got desperate. The photos showed Chris meeting with men in expensive suits outside a downtown office building. The kind of men who collected debts with baseball bats and concrete boots. He told them he could pay by Friday, Stacy continued. When he can't, they're going to start breaking things. Starting with him. And this concerns me how? Because he's planning to blame you. He's told them you stole his money, that you're the reason he can't pay. I studied the photos more carefully. The men Chris was meeting with looked like they'd stepped out of a mob movie. Dark suits, dead eyes, the kind of stillness that comes from years of violence. You're saying they might come after me? I'm saying they definitely will. Unless Chris gives them a better target. She pulled out another photo. Claire, walking out of the unemployment office. Your wife applied for benefits yesterday. She's broke, blacklisted, and desperate. Perfect target for manipulation. The pieces click together. Chris is going to use Claire to get to me. Bingo. He's convinced her that you destroyed both their lives, that you're the villain in this story. She wants revenge almost as much as he does. Almost? Stacy smiled, and it wasn't pleasant. I want it more than both of them combined. She explained her plan while I drank coffee and tried to process the scope of Chris's stupidity. He'd borrowed money from criminals, promised them returns on a house he didn't own, and now planned to solve his problems by destroying me. It would have been impressive if it wasn't so pathetic. What do you need from me? I asked. Nothing. Just stay out of the way and let me work. What about Claire? What about her? She made her choice. Friday evening, I was home watching TV when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see Claire standing on my front porch, looking like she hadn't slept in days. I opened the door but kept the chain on. What do you want, Claire? I want to talk. We talked. You told me to leave my own house. David, please? I know you're angry, but we need to discuss this like adults. I almost laughed. Adults? You mean like how you and Chris discussed stealing my house? It wasn't like that. What was it like? She was crying now, real tears that might have moved me a month ago. I made mistakes, okay? But this has gone too far. Chris is in real trouble. What kind of trouble? The kind that gets people killed. I opened the door, let her in. She looked around the living room like she was seeing it for the first time. The furniture we'd bought together, the photos from our honeymoon, the life we'd built before she decided to throw it away. Chris owes money to some very bad people, she said. They're going to hurt him if he doesn't pay. And you want me to help him? I want you to give him the house. Sign it over, walk away, let this end. I stared at her. You're serious. Dead serious. Claire, even if I wanted to help Chris, which I don't, I can't give him something he never legally purchased. Then sell it to him. For $1, for free. I don't care. Why would I do that? Because if you don't, people are going to get hurt. Maybe you, maybe me. The threat was subtle but clear. I was supposed to be scared. Instead, I started laughing. What's so funny? Claire demanded. You are. Both of you. You think you're so smart, so sophisticated, but you're just small-town criminals who got in over your heads. David. No, let me finish. You want to know what's really funny? Chris has been playing you from the beginning. The whole relationship, the house, all of it. It was just a con to get money for his debts. I showed her the photos Stacy had given me. Claire and Chris together, Chris and Stacy together, Chris meeting with the loan sharks. He never loved you, Claire. You were just a means to an end. She studied the photos with growing horror. Where did you get these? From someone who knows Chris better than you do. Stacy. Stacy. Claire sank into the couch, buried her face in her hands. Oh God, what have I done? You destroyed our marriage for a man who was using you to steal my house so he could pay off loan sharks. That's what you did. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. It's done. Turn on Channel 7. I grabbed the remote, switched to the local news. The lead story was already in progress. Arrested this evening in connection with an elaborate real estate fraud scheme. Christopher Madison, a local developer, is accused of forging documents and stealing more than $300,000 from investors. The screen showed Chris in handcuffs, being led to a police car. His face was bloody, his expensive suit torn. He looked like he'd been in a fight. Sources say Madison was beaten by unknown assailants before police arrived, the reporter continued. He's been taken to Millbrook General Hospital under police guard. Claire stared at the TV in shock. How? Stacey Morrison is very thorough. She's been documenting Chris's crimes for months, waiting for the right moment to strike. But the men he owed money to got their money back, along with interest. Turns out Chris had been hiding assets in offshore accounts. Stacey found them all. The news report continued with footage of FBI agents carrying boxes out of Chris's office, bank records, computer files, evidence of a dozen different scams. He's going away for a long time, I said. Federal prison, no parole. Claire was crying again, but these weren't manipulative tears. These were the tears of someone who'd finally understood how completely she'd been played. What happens to me now? That's up to you. I lost my job, my license. I have nothing. You have your choices. You chose Chris over me. You chose to steal my house. You chose to trust a criminal over your husband. I stood up, walked to the door, opened it. Time to go, Claire. She looked at me one last time, maybe hoping for forgiveness or another chance. But some things can't be fixed, and some choices can't be undone. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know. She walked out into the night, and I closed the door behind her. Through the window, I watched her get into Tina's Range Rover. They'd probably go back to Tina's house, drink wine, and try to figure out how everything went so wrong. But I already knew the answer. They'd underestimated the wrong man. My phone rang. Stacey Morrison. Enjoying the show? She asked. Very much. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. There's one more surprise coming. What kind of surprise? The kind that makes sure this never happens again? Saturday morning's newspaper had the full story. Chris Madison's arrest was front-page news, complete with photos and a detailed timeline of his crimes. But the real surprise was on page 3. Local woman wins lottery. The article was short but sweet. Claire Halley, recently unemployed real estate agent, had won $50,000 in the state lottery. The ticket had been purchased 3 days ago at a convenience store downtown, except Claire hadn't bought a lottery ticket. I had, using her name, her social security number, and her signature. The same signature I'd been forging for months. The prize money would be deposited directly into an account I'd opened in her name, an account with very specific terms and conditions. She could have the money, but only if she left Millbrook permanently. Any attempt to return, any contact with me or my business, and the funds would be donated to charity. It was enough money to start over somewhere else, far away from me, far away from the wreckage of her choices. My phone buzzed. Text from Claire. I know this was you. Thank you. I deleted the message without responding. Sunday morning, I drove past Tina's house. The Range Rover was gone. So was Claire's car. They'd taken the hint. I stopped at O'Malley's for a beer and found Jules polishing glasses with a satisfied smile. Heard your wife left town, he said. News travels fast. Small town. People talk. He poured me a beer, slid it across the bar. On the house. For a job well done. I raised the glass in a toast. To justice. To revenge, Jules corrected. Same thing. Outside, Millbrook looked exactly the same as it had 6 months ago. Same streets, same buildings, same people going about their lives. But everything was different now. Chris Madison was in federal prison, facing 20 years for fraud and racketeering. Claire was gone, starting over in some distant city with enough money to build a new life. Stacey Morrison had her revenge and a substantial reward from the FBI for exposing Chris's crimes. And I was sitting in my house, drinking beer and watching the sunset through windows that nobody could take away from me. The phone rang. New client wanted an estimate for a kitchen renovation. David Halley Construction, I answered. How can I help you? Because that's what I did. I built things, fixed things, made things better than they were before. Sometimes that meant installing cabinets or repairing foundations. Sometimes it meant teaching people that actions have consequences. Either way, I was very good at my job.